What's going on, everybody? So I just wanted to go over a pretty simple example of the level of communication that I've been seeing recently. In personal relationships, in business, and family. And I kind of wanted to describe a little bit about what I'm seeing and some basic fundamentals and strategies that you should implement in your life going forward to help minimize the damage that this level of communication is causing for both parties. So, we're going to start with the inner circle, right? So, we've got an inner circle for two people, and this is basically, all of the stuff that triggers somebody, like whatever trauma that they had since they were 5 years old, or everybody's got some type of baggage and story. So like that's all the stuff that's inside, and how people process that and deal with that. Everybody has something like that. And then you have the day-to-day stuff that's just outside of it. So when two people, when they're interacting with each other, you might get, the hey, how are you, the stuff that flows right over, or the, hey, I love you, depending on what level of the relationship it's at, things like that. So just imagine there's the stuff that goes on the surface, breezes right by, and then there's the other stuff that, when you send it to somebody's way, it takes a little chip off of that person's reality, I guess you would kind of say. It takes that a chip of off of their emotional, capacity, or width for tolerance. So enough of those. Let's just say, eventually what you get is you get something where, over time, or just immediately, depending on what you say and how you say it, you're starting to hit ground zero here. And depending on that person, depending on what strategies they have, or emotional processes, or strategies for coping with their own problems and things like that, this could be very painful. And the way that this is displayed is going to be different for everybody. And there's no textbook definition, and there's no reality or course that's ever going to solve what's going on here. So this is a fundamental part about being a human being, is this part right here. But the fundamental part about being a human being is trying not to do this part, trying not to eat away at this layer, this regenerative layer that, given time, given some type of technique, or skill, does regenerate. So again, doing stuff that eats away at this layer, whether or not intentional, is a process of this person has to be aware of that. Now, this is a give and receive process, because you might get a little chip over here from this person doing it to this person. Eventually the two are going to be so well, they're going to develop the means necessary to do these kinds of things very, very well. Now the level of effort that it took to do some type of damage to this outer layer becomes very easy for this person to do that. So the momentum starts building with each and every intentful decision. It could be something small like not wanting to listen to your partner. It could be something small like promising your son, some type of benefit, for sticking around in the parent kid relationship, right? And then not fulfilling that promise. So it becomes very easy for that person to do that. Now, the problem that happens is, eventually this this starts becoming basically like a nuclear button relationship, where now literally, people are, they're trying to regenerate this stuff, as quickly and as often as possible. Human beings are naturally good at doing that kind of stuff. So, what type of healing, eating good food, practicing good thoughts, or I wouldn't even say good thoughts, just the thoughts that are necessary in order to get to the next day without one getting hurt or killed, or, you know, not spending as much money as yesterday, or, on their way to fulfill some type of goal, right? So this regenerative layer, human beings get better at trying to regenerate that layer so that when they go into these kinds of interactions, they could they could survive a little chip here because somebody said, your shoes smell like shit or something like that, and you're just like, oh yeah, I stepped in dog poop, my bad, but it still hurts. You know what I mean? Like, and then you go home and you rest up, and 3 days later, now it's looking like that. But within those 3 days, something like this could have happened. You know what I mean? But you guys get what I'm talking about. Oh, what happened there? Like, this is a marker. But um now now you're in phase two of a relationship, let's say, right? And you guys are getting really good at the communication and the strategies and things like that. Now all of a sudden what happens is that, what used to take a lot of effort to, let's say, do something like that, or a lot of effort to do something like, hey, hey, you looking good, or you smell good, or, hey, you want to do something later, things like that, right? Things that don't necessarily chip away at the regenerative layer, but just kind of make the interaction, it suffices the level of interaction that you're having with somebody, right? So you get really good at that kind of stuff. But we're talking about what happens when that interaction starts going like this, right? So building up that level of momentum that really just, we're talking about, like, it just chips away like a whole crater, like that, right? Something like that. So now it starts taking away larger pieces of this, and it may do more significant impact, or it's same way happening this way, and now this person's dealing with crater that is now and then, like, let's say this person throws a second shot, right? And now it starts hitting this part of this person, right? The things where, and it doesn't have to be a specific topic, but it's just the feeling of being hit in this spot is something that this person, as a human being, they need to be aware that they're doing that. And that's the goal, that's generally what I train for, is trying to be this person and realizing what I'm doing over here to this person and stop doing it. And I'll tell you guys how I deal with that, both on the giving end and the receiving end. Because again, these interactions are going to happen day to day. I mean, that's just the way life works. You might meet somebody in the grocery market, and that person cuts in line in front of you, and you're like, hey, blah 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 blah, and then you just wipe out this whole regenerative layer and just completely obliterate that person, with a few cuss words and the like, But everybody's different. But you guys got what I'm saying, Or you could go, 15 years in a relationship, or where actually, you got really good at understanding each other's regenerative layer, and instead of chipping away at it, you might have really good communication to just have this kind of stuff go on, right? So, and that's ideal. I mean, but it doesn't actually present itself like that anywhere in the world. It's a fantasy. But here's what to do when you're in this situation, right? And let's say you're causing damage, and you're also receiving damage, and eventually what happens is, like, the two players, don't really have a layer left, and you guys are just constantly back and forth, just bombing each other with things. And let's say it's the most ideal situation. Let's say these two players are well versed in, hypnosis, right? Self hypnosis. Let's say they're really well versed in and in all techniques, NLP. Let's say they're really well versed in, spiritual spiritual stuff, like Reiki and Reiki and spell casting and stuff like that, whatever these folks are doing out here today. Right? Let's say these two players are really good at this stuff. So their ability to regenerate their layers is second to none in the world, right? So you have the two number one players, right? And they're really good at self-regeneration, right? So they get up every single morning and they eat healthy and they're exercising and they're lifting weights and they're practicing all different kinds of meditating and yoga and all this kind of stuff, right? And stretching and all that, right? So they have really good foundational practices, and they're in this relationship where the relationship starts looking like this now, right? So you have the best people in the world, the most ideal situation where that regenerative outer layer is literally second to none compared to any human being in the world, right? So now you got two people who are just constantly bombing each other's regenerative layer to the point where this is the daily interaction. It's just back and forth, just straight to the nuclear button, right? Get out. This is not a relationship. This is self-harm. This is harming other people with intentional and malicious intent. This kind of relationship is even in the best circumstances where they're regenerative and second to none and stuff like that. This kind of relationship just it's terrible. It's showing people that even though they're really good at regenerating, the relationship, you got to remember again, is like, what started off as, the regenerative layer, and then it started going like this, and then, over time, the momentum of doing a thought or the momentum of doing an action just becomes so much better. That's just the way the human body works and the human mind works, is that you become better every single day at the things that you do the most. So any interaction, you're just going to become better and better and better at it. And if you guys are nuking each other to the point where there is no more regenerative layer, no matter how good you are at regenerating your layer, even in the best circumstances, this is abuse. This is malicious intent to harm another human being, and also malicious intent to harm yourself by staying in this kind of relationship. So what does somebody need to do what do these two parties need to do in this situation? One is accountability. You need to understand that no matter what's been going on, between these two people, is taking accountability and understanding that you are a party in this relationship, where no matter even the smallest thing that you do has enough momentum to just completely wipe out this person's regenerative layer, even though they're really good at all these kinds of, self-regenerative capabilities of the human mind and the human body and things like that, right? So, what this is right here is only going to get better, and you're nuking this person's soft spot, the spot that they don't want, the spot where, like, if you keep pressing that button, it's not going to make anybody feel any better, and then it's just working its way back here. And sometimes it might not even, even in the best circumstances, you guys have the most the best regenerative practices for restoring your regenerative layer. Let's say this person is the person who's doing it the most to this person, right? And this person has a couple of chips here, and for whatever reason, this is a lot more impactful. This relationship is a lot more impactful, and on this person, where this is the level of damage that's being done here is a lot more than the level of damage that's being done here. But also, again, this person has to take accountability for being in this relationship, which is why I say number one is taking accountability. You guys have to take inventory in inventory. You have to take inventory. What's actually going on in the relationship? What's actually going on in reality? And number two, actually, number two is kind of taking inventory, but it's accountability, is understanding the situation, taking inventory. Two is taking inventory, which is now you have to take a really careful look at what exactly is going on in your mind, in your body, in your spirit, in your finances, in your emotional process. What is it that's actually going on? How is it that you're interacting with this person? How is it that you're receiving information from this person? How is it that they're dealing with the things that you're also providing? How is it, what is, you have to study this kind of stuff, right? So now it's understanding, taking inventory, what is actually going on in the relationship? How is this actually coming to be? And then number three is you have to get out. Absolutely. There's no way a person who, no matter what scenario this is, whether it's you guys are just nuking each other's regenerative layer back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, or one person has a layer that's more regenerative, who's the person who's doing the most damage has a layer that's still there, day after day, because this person just doesn't have that level of malicious intent or ill will, or the process in which this person communicates with this person isn't as hurtful or abusive to this person, so this person has, it doesn't matter. Either way, both parties need to remain accountable to this interaction, no matter where they're at, no matter what the skills are, no matter what the level of physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, emotional, sexual. No, it doesn't matter what level of back and forth that everybody is playing at. It's the fact that this is eventually, again, this is the best case scenario in terms of who everybody has the restorative later. It's you have to get your accountability in, take inventory, what's actually going on here, and then get out. Because it's not helping anybody. This situation is not going to help anybody. Again, even in better circumstances, all the way up to, they may not have all the restorative or regenerative skills and drills, or techniques, or methods, or food palette. I will not give up eating chicken. But what I'm saying is that it just, guys, it doesn't matter at what level the hurt is. It's the fact that it's constantly happening, and the person who's doing it, whether it's you, whether it's them, you have to gain accountability on that. You have to get the inventory to understand what's going on in the relationship, and then you have to get out. You have to figure out that exit strategy. So what's some things that get accountability? How is it that you talk about accountability with each other when you're in this position? It's like, look, there are just some things that are going on in this relationship that it's just, honestly, I see it, right? Again, taking accountability is a self-reflection process, but it's also a process where you get to look and understand what's going on, even if it's just one step in the right direction of accountability. It's the fact that you have the conscious effort to go into that relationship and say something ain't working, and I'm part of that, right? So you go into this and you just say, look, you could talk with that other person, and just say, look, I get it, for all the momentum building that I've been doing, just constantly bombing your ability to regenerate yourself, right? And now I'm just bam, 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 bam. Like, you're just constantly nuking this person with whatever bullshit. It's just, it could be something small again, or it could just be large. But it's the fact that you've been building the momentum back and forth. It just talk it out. Really, it just starts with I don't know how accountable I can be in this relationship, but I'm willing to give it a try. It's like, what is it that you see that I might not be aware of? What is it that we might be doing with each other that's just not working? And that way you throw the word accountability out there. You might not fucking mean it. You might not even be interested in taking accountability. One of the two parties might be way better at being accountable than the other party, and the other party just doesn't want to hear it. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that, you know, one of the two could just say, hey, look, like, my goal is to be accountable in all aspects in this relationship, and I just need to figure out what is it that we're doing that's really going to help us work towards that level of accountability. Um, and and that's it. And then just shut the fuck up and see what happens. Number two is more of a personal journey. Number two is taking inventory. I always recommend just getting your own shit together whenever you're in a relationship. Get your own shit together. Take care of your own personal problems. Take care of your own finances, your own health, your own wealth, emotional process, spiritual needs, emotional needs, financial needs. You have to take care of that stuff yourself, because nobody's going to get up and they're not going to dust off your shoulders and then go work for you and then pay you, and then pay your bills. Like, that's not the way the world works. I know it's shitty, but that's just the way the world works. Nobody's going to do that for you. So I always suggest number two is more of an inclusive thing. It's more of a personal journey where you have to get really good at taking inventory. Like, what's really going on in your life that you are accountable for, that you need to take inventory on. You need to understand exactly where you are on the totem poles of life. Are you spending money on drugs and alcohol? Are you smoking your cigarette? Are you smoking your money away on cigarettes? Are you a penny pincher and pound foolish? What are the things that you're doing to get you into those positions, and how is it that you're going to self-adjust so that you could get out of those things, or those, the self-destructive behaviors. And number three is get out. Sometimes, actually all the time, this relationship is not going to work. And then you're going to get better at it. You're going to get better at understanding what another person is doing, whether it's the first time you're meeting somebody and you're bringing fresh regenerative layers to the conversation, and then all of a sudden, boom, somebody hits that one nuclear bomb and they blow away your whole regenerative, and you're just like, hey man, it was really good talking to you, peace the fuck out, and you're gone. Right? So now you start understanding what people are capable of and what people are willing to do to be in a relationship with you, whether or not it's mutual, or they're going to be on some abusive or malicious intentful conversations and interactions and ways of being in that relationship. So you guys have to be aware that get out is the only solution. It's get out and get away. And honestly, once people start figuring out how to build this momentum, they're always going to have that ability to do that. They're always going to have that ability. It doesn't matter if it's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. It's the fact that you let it happen, that they're continuously going to be able to get that level of interaction with you. So you guys have to be careful. Number three is the only way to deal with it. Get out. Don't deal with them anymore. Stop answering phone calls. Don't address them anymore. Move the country, or whatever it is that you need to do. I don't care. You guys just need to figure it out. Because honestly, like, once you let somebody start doing that kind of stuff with you, they have it in them. They know that they're gonna do it. You could hear all the sorries and forgive me and let's work it out and stuff like that. Nah, they're always going to be able to have that level of slide that shit right in there and nuke this motherfucker. Like, that's just, it's what they're good at. You let them get good at that stuff, guys. It's fine. Get the fuck out of the relationship. It's not going to cost you anything other than staying in the relationship, which is just destruction of peace of mind. So just get good at it. Get good at taking accountability. Get good at developing your own inventory. And then get number three, out. That's the only way that I see how people can really excel. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go outside and you're going to deal with people like this every single day in your life. You're going to deal with people who've got, this regenerative layer, just because, that's just the way human beings work. You're going to go out there and you're going to want to meet somebody, and having taken accountability in your relationships, having taken inventory in your own personal journey, and understanding where is it that this just does not make sense. You're going to become a better interactor. You're going to become a better person to be around. You're going to become a better person to develop a relationship with. But you guys have to get good at 1, 2, and 3. And this works for both parties. It works for the offender and also the offended if this is like a one-sided thing, right? So that's my 2 cents. That's how I've been seeing things recently because, to give specific examples won't even be entertaining enough. It's the fact that this is literally the level of conversation, the level of interaction that goes on a day-to-day basis. It's actually existing. People are dealing with this level of stuff all the time, and they're constantly having their regenerative layers blown away 30%, blown away 10%. Then a year goes by and that person's stuff gets blown away 20% with each conversation. And then eventually this whole thing just gets wiped out even by just thinking of that other person. And then you're just constantly walking around like a zombie without having to regenerate, not having the ability to regenerate because you're just so down because this part of you just keeps getting nuked. It just keeps getting assaulted. It just keeps getting pressed. And these are the problems, Again, you have to take accountability with you being, whatever part of the relationship you are. Just take accountability, take inventory, and get out. And that's my 2 cents, guys. I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys do better. Bye.